I'm going to start and go. I normally used to look at this thing, a calendar of sayings on a daily basis. I was going to flip it and just see what one arrives at random, but the one that's on the top that's just already there is saying all things are difficult before they are easy. Yeah. And, we were having the preamble earlier on about I was just thinking, I've 2 years of work ahead of me for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'd like to get the film started. This is a project we're working on. And there's a secondary parallel project to promote our tickets and communicate to our end audience, which is this 52 7-foot. I'm calling them paintings. They're no longer paintings. I'm finding this new language of they're tickets to ride. There's 52 tickets to ride the retreat of the film. But what it is, in terms of workload and effort before you get to have a ticket to promote and sell or show or do communicate or do anything, you've got to do the work effort on them. So I'm going, if I gave it a week per each individual one, it's a 52 weeks, it's a year. Now that then immediately tells me, it's not that you can't do it. It's whether you should be doing it alone, whether you should be working with others, whether you should think wider and involve others in a community aspect to do it in parallel as opposed to one after another. So there's a potential to maybe let go of the project and invite more in, or there's hold on tight to it and control it and own the full workload and possibly be overwhelmed. But under each case, though, it's all things are difficult before they are easy. But how is it just to turn up who makes it easy, or by opening up and involving others makes it easier?
One of the things that starts to happen when you open it up to other people, which is what I think we've also encountered, is that the level of complexity increases quite substantially, because you're now having to pass your ideas onto those other people. It's not that you shouldn't be passing your ideas onto other people, but all of a sudden you're introducing other elements that want to make their mark on what you're doing. And we've experienced it with some of the people that we've spoken to over the last few months, where all of a sudden they're wanting to take over the project and push it in fact, not take over the project, actually like a cuckoo, pushing their project so it takes over from ours. And effectively we're working for somebody else that we didn't intend to do in the first place, but it just, and I've experienced that on several projects where I thought I was coming in as the director. We were co-working as producers. And then all of a sudden, after doing all the editing, which is where most of the hard work actually goes in, suddenly found a particular film was re-edited by somebody else that hadn't got the skills, and they said they hadn't got the skills, and they objected to what they were doing, and basically took out all the interviews and stuff that was in this film and submitted it into film festivals, and all I got in the credits was a thank you, because from their perspective, all the work that was in there was their work, not what I had been involved with, which, okay, that's understandable. But having spent a lot of time and effort, effectively £24,000 worth of effort into this production, and getting other people involved in the editing, so it became an experiential thing for that, suddenly discovered that all our effort was for nothing because somebody then took it away and didn't give us equality in that production. And actually saw themselves as being higher up the ladder than everybody else. And I think we've experienced that ourselves recently with a couple of people that came in. Well, one person in particular, again, no names. But the thing was, it became a battle to try and get across our ideas, which slows the process down. And it means that we can't get going where we are. Whereas I think we're fairly clear what we're trying to achieve. We know the objectives. The struggle is because we're having to prune out the people that are causing us to slow down, because they're becoming weights that really just hold us back, don't move us forward, because all of a sudden their belief disappears, or they want to take in another trajectory, which isn't the one that we wanted to go in the first place. Whereas we know what our objectives are, and we're moving that forward. We're both in agreement. We're not, we both have our way of saying what we want, and we're both coming up with the same kind of agreement, where we have different perspectives, but our agreement, our visions are in line. So we know that we can tackle what issues are relatively small, so it doesn't basically derail the project and mean it can't happen. Now, I have had experience of the other way around, where I've worked on a project that was going well, but then I was taking on too much. But I think the way that we're trying to do this is through the paintings could generate the funds for the first film, or it could be for the second film. That doesn't really matter. They're there as a potential that shows the journey that we're going on. We're basically blowing up scenes, not individual storyboards, but scenes that represent 52 moments, collective scenes within our film. So we've got that idea there. And I think once we get the process worked out, which will be the slowest part, once we've got the technique worked out, it should be possible to knock it all out very quickly once we've got the 52 images.
That's very interesting, because that's where all things are difficult before they are easy. But if it was easy, everybody be doing it. It needs to be difficult. And actually, it's like I'm now looking at other people's work, artists, and I'm going, I'm not trying to be an artist. I'm not undervaluing their 5 years of university and 20 years of life commitment to their styling and their works. No, I'm just viewing this as a creative tool and under a process head. And exactly as you were saying, it's a communication tool. We're going to communicate our feature in a minimum, number of images that give a good tale or feeling for the flavor of the story and the journey of characters or imagery. Now, that could be, if you start going fine art, that will be a highly complex 5 years of 12-hour-a-day work if these were portraits, if these were paintings, these are the minimum. If I keep on coming back to this language of minimum of value proposition, the minimum that it needs to be to communicate a message, if it was one board, one ticket. That's it. One ticket to ride in one board of one scene in 1 week of our production. So it becomes, what is that? What's it look like? And can I, and again, we're actually doing it again under this heading of, I have an appetite, I can bring myself to bear, I can learn, someone can empower me with enough of a process of skill to basically become an automaton of copying it up there. No, the weird thing is, we could actually just do it on Adobe and actually get it printed out and paste it on as wallpaper. But we're going, that's not what it's meant. It's not a poster. It's this creative involvement of putting yourself into it that, I'd like to think there's still an art of yourself, of your time in all of these journeys that makes it more creative and real than being a photocopy or a wallpapering of an image, using a system. So there's still that's it will become easy. It has to become harder in order for it to become easier over time and through repetition, maybe.
Well, I think one of the great things is you're producing thumbnails for the videos that go up on YouTube, and you're doing them very quickly. But the message in those thumbnails, does show the idea and the concept in a very quick sort of way. You're not getting bogged down with technique. You're not getting bogged down with all this other stuff. The perfectionism that an artist may have is not there. We're still sticking to the 20/80. And if 20% of the effort produces 80% of the result, why spend the extra 80% trying to just get that 20%? When the idea, we do live in a transitory, society where things are only up for a moment. They only have, no one values things in quite the same way that they used to. But I think the joint activity is replicating the filmmaking process, because it's one person gets one thing, then it gets interpreted another way, and then it gets interpreted another. And one of the things that would be quite interesting is that even if we produce something in Photoshop or whatever we're going to use to do, I've got ideas, but I'm trying to do exactly the same as yours. I'm trying not to get waylaid in my background techniques. I'm trying to do it. How fast can we get this done so it shows what we're looking for? Minimum, I'm not saying minimum effort, because there's still a lot of effort going to go into the original storyboards, but we'll develop those and fine tune them a little bit more. But again, with the idea that there's a process that we're trying to do that allows us to move it from that image I have on my screen that can be blown up to the 7x4 canvases that you have that allows you to quickly interpret it initially with pencil, and then looking at the image, you can then paint it with the colors or whatever you want to try and do, even airbrush it, anything that you feel that you need to interpret those images. So it still gives you a certain flexibility of developing a technique yourself that will come off as you paint it, or whoever gets doing it. But there is something about the process that also requires a conformity, that whoever's doing it unites each image, that they don't change the process.
And that was something in the past that, there was a previous iteration or version of the 52 Jokers Wild 50. This we touched on it before. These canvases have been coming for a long time now. 5 years in an ideation, park it, get back to it. It's not the right time. Now it's found its own language for this particular project. But let's just call it Project 52. It will have many, there's no if. We have the boards. I am priming them as we speak. We will have this background template structure that, if you make a mistake, you can just whitewash it and start again. The thing here is about the installation framework is shortly being created to then house different content.
Yes.
This content of this iteration will be, this feature can be communicated and it's 52 tickets to ride. But next year, it could be a different feature, same thing again. The 52 new boards, if we sell the board or we whitewash the board, they might have a lifetime. It might be that they're just going to be whitewashed and move on to the next thing. Or it might be the amount of effort that went into it is art in its own right, a postcard or a poster of, and therefore can go on its own journey, a product or a part of something bigger. But it's not to get overcomplicated or over ownership of it now, because that's why I'm already going, no, I want to do it all myself. I want this ownership and go, because they're blank. And I'm saying I already don't want to share it in the sense of I want to do this on it. No, the I is this journey of the story that I do this part of the process and you do that part. And I know the I can become a we very, very quickly. And it more than likely needs to be. But yeah. I think the I will become a we when we've understood and established the first few iterations of it, to go, this is what we mean, and now work within the confines. This is how far we could open the door to make the we a bit bigger, that they themselves want to be part of it and contribute to it, but not be trying to take ownership of it.
Yeah, and I think what's really quite nice is that, we're doing this with a feature film script at the moment, and I'm literally, I know you're saying I'm co-writing it with you, but what's happened is you've given me a framework that has the story well established. And all I'm doing is going through it and turning it into what the actors need to understand the actions that's going on, trying to actually integrating scenes that I feel are running in parallel, not separate, and trying to look at how to compress the story within those scenes if necessary. Because the moment is running at 130 pages, which in itself is not too bad, but we want a 90-minute film for the low. If we start doing, 3-hour movies at low budget, I think we're defeating the object. What we need to be doing is really nice, crisp, sharp, well-performed, well-executed movies that are 90 minutes long, that an audience who may be just about to go into a low-budget movie to watch will actually say, that was really good, well worthwhile watching. And we also then help, by doing that, promote the low-budget movies that allow people's careers to be launched as actors, as directors, as producers, as writers, as the crew that are on them. It gives them this experience. I think the thing that we're really pushing forward with this is that we're not in the film industry. We don't have to confine ourselves to what the film industry does. We're not getting into those arguments and the politics. What we are doing is using our experience of your Airbnb experience and how you've catered for an audience to come and relax, and the areas that you've got there. It's more than just the execution of the film. It's the interaction that happens, the relaxation that people have through the process, that if they so choose to go off and make a movie, they'll have got a lot of skills that they never would have had. Just based on a single week, they would gain so many skills that they could actually implement. in a full-size film. Most of the problems that we're encountering with local filmmakers, and I think global filmmakers, to be honest, is that those that are trying to get into the industry don't fully understand the process. Even if they've got degrees and master's degrees, they still haven't got the experience of what it's like. We can generate that experience through these films because of our skills and past histories in working, me in television and you working for the communications industries. As an accountant, we're understanding the budgets of these things, how those things go together, how we make sure that we deliver the kind of service that we want to deliver to our clients, who aren't the streamers, who aren't the television companies, or they're not even the cinemas. They're actually the 48 people or 8 people per week that we have to go on this journey for a week to create a 15-minute item, which we are turning into a feature film. And I think that's what's the lovely thing about this and being so creative and artful is that we are doing the things that we've wanted to do. We don't have permission. We don't need to be given the role that we're doing. We're actually owning it now because we've gained the relevant experience that gives us really the masters and PhDs, as you said, of understanding of what we're now doing. And we've been on the journey with the 2 films that's brought you up to the level of understanding about how that mechanism works. And through the business sense I've got, I've now married up with what you're doing. So I can you were talking about ownership. And one of the lovely things that's been going on with what we're doing is that I've had the chance to let go of a massive amount of what I normally would do to prepare a film, a short or a feature, because I'm able to hand it over to you, knowing that we're working off the same hymn sheet, if you want to sort it that we've collaborated enough that we understand how to communicate the ideas, that I'm fully confident that you're going off and doing what needs to be done. I don't even need to worry about that because I can just focus on the things that I need to get done and get that delivered so we can get it to the next stage. And I think that's an important part of the process.
What's great is I think we're getting back to I didn't know that this podcast is going to be about, but what an awful lot of the wording is resonating with myself. Even talking about is the art. I feel I've always been an artist or creative. Okay, I was an accidental accountant. There was meant to be a creative. Was always a creative, but was just not expressing it in any medium of art. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't have one, I didn't know. Even though my sisters were artists, I don't have any paintbrushes. I have no paint. I have no canvas. I'm not that type of artist. I always said I'm a bullshit artist, a piss art. I'm that type of artist I had mastered many a year ago, but not to create manifestation of an ideation of a creation of something unique from the individual. And that was the journey to this. You gave me permission probably a couple of years ago now to this film, to write a feature film as artist writer. That is mad, absolute nuttiness for me. I'm not saying I'm an actor. Forget the actor bit. That was a permission to give something a go. To sound, give it a go. I'm not going to go off and become a sound man. Nothing wrong with that for those that want to. That's not in my calling, and it's not something I'm going to pursue. The same with lots of the bits, the functions we're talking about. But the art of film, and it's not if I picked photography or the DP part, then it goes back into this silo of that's the function of being artistic within film. I think it's the art of film, whereby it's this holistic view as producer, even though it's producer in the language of accountant, is actually project manager to me of all moving parts. I wanted to step beyond producer and be part of the production mechanism of producing the art and insert into it some of yourself. And that's where I think, we're starting to meld the roles of, not producer, director. You're definitely directing the actors. And God knows I might direct one or two to do something at some stage. I'm not seeking that out. But what I want to direct in the production is the manifestation of the view of the creative art piece. And it's not you're saying this is art film or art house film. But for the moment, if we're taking it that we wrote the scripts, then the art that we're actually manifesting is characters of that didn't exist before. that have lines, have to go off and carry out actions. And this is the reality of the story that was written. And that is the artist, where the script made real through action of actors in adopting avatar personalities. That sort of art is starting to call to me, and I want to empower myself to is this my? I'm not trying to say to my. I'm going. Is this my art? It's with an er and a we and all the rest of it. But I do feel I can see myself in a journey with others from now into the future, where we are making films. We're making real ideas. We're producing them and making them real. And these other artists are getting a chance to perform their art under the template of what we've given them that we can control. And only in control in the sense of capture and make sure that if this is before that and this is after the other, this story is meaningful. And the characters in the roles they have is meaningful. And if portrayed correctly or half correctly, then it'll be entertaining. It'll be meaningful and to others. And therefore, that's the art made real. The paintings, I'm never going to be a painter. In terms of one that's going to be RHA this and this is my I'm an artist. And the artist I want to be is more this bit of self-expression through the language and course of the film, as opposed to film course. And there's a lot of us in what we're watching, given the genre, given the characters. If we make them PG, it's because we don't believe they need to be effing and blinding and bejesus and begorra and all the rest that goes with it in order to fit into someone else's idea of what it should be. No, we are the first customers. We are the artists, and the tools we will use are these characters and people and lines and dialogue and imagery and lighting. And I'm looking forward to being in that level of art creation, but it's not a lighthouse art film. I'm not trying to do this mad stuff that only a few people will get or understand or even want to see.
No, and I think that's the key. I think is developing stories that a bigger audience can enjoy because it relates to them, and that's not by going off and doing something that's very obscure and nobody knows how to get into it. But I think, what you were talking about there was the fact that you're being allowed to do your thing. You're being allowed to have ownership to parts of a movie that you're collaborating in. And what was really great in GVH was that there were a few scenes. Well, one of them was you designed, in the sense of choice, the wardrobe of your character. And in that, because of certain color schemes that we had, we were able to match in radios. So then the shot started to have a sense of production design simply because of the arrangements of things that we had within that frame, the way we were capturing it. And I think what's starting to happen now is that we're growing in confidence that when we go to shoot the next film, as in Any Which Way But Out, we'll be able to move more in depth with that, because the worry of whether we can make a film or not is now moving away. What we're trying to do is enhance those skills even more. You've been developing an eye for things in over the years, even the way that you've positioned artwork around your house that could be in ND and became an integral part of ND at one point, which was quite nice. We'll start to look at those sort of things within our film, because we are in control of everything that's on that frame, in every single frame. Whether we leave something in or take it out, we are the ones that are in control of that. And if we start to get into the depths of what the film can actually portray, we can start to do that with the costumes, with the vehicles we use, with the way we light it, because we're now talking about lighting, because I've just bought a light, and we want to light things in a certain way. But we'll also want to start using color. So, for example, I'm looking at your room, and there's that kind of green, sort of jadey kind of color. But the interesting thing is that the carpets are reflecting the light back up onto your pool table. So your pool table, which may not be the jadey green, is actually starting to reflect that. So there's a sense of design in all of that that's going on. If we can emulate that in different scenes with different colors, even if it means painting it, but I mean, going back a little bit, you've already created a stage in that large room with the boards being red and with the way it was going to be set up for a potential podcast, which we hope to do when we get these things off the ground. We'll set up a podcast. So in the evening, we can record a couple of bits and pieces that will make up the podcast for that week and people talking about their experiences. We'll set that up. But you've created that environment for those people to express themselves how they would like. And I think what's really lovely is that as we move on this journey, we'll each get little ideas and kind of go, oh, actually, what about if we did this? And what if we do that? And how could that enhance the story without making it too complicated? And I think we're building up our confidence to be able to do that within the projects that we're now working at. And I like what you were saying about doing a PG film, trying to do something that emulates what people are seeing, but realizing that this is actually art, and we can be a bit more clever in the way that we do things. And that I think is, whether it's this next film or whether it's the film after or the one after that, because I believe that once we've got this process ironed out, it will be like your little thing, that the hardest part is getting to a certain point and then it just flows because we've developed the methods that it's going to work. We're doing the trial and error at the moment, and we're achieving big goals in little steps. And I think we know that the next fruitful step is to turn our shorts into feature films, which is what we're now doing. And I know, within the next few weeks, Gawain, I will have the script to a certain level, and then I want to take it to another level. And we will be, at the moment, we're on version 5 of the script. The next version would be version 6. And maybe at that stage, we'll have trimmed it to the point where it's 90 minutes. So we're making a 90-minute movie. And that's the one that we'll go with. There will come a point where we say, that's it. Don't do any more. There's no point, because all you're doing is, we'll have done the 20% that produces the 80% mark.
Yeah.
And then it's the time to stop, because the script will still develop in every single stage that it goes through there afterwards. It may not have to happen in text, but it will become a visual story that will be edited. It'll then go to be shot, and the way the actors interact with one another, that'll add something else to it. We'll get ideas as we did the last time. I mean, the great thing was that mallet thing that you had that suddenly popped up and became an element in the story. It wasn't scripted.
It made no sense, but that was a weird thing.
Because it turned up twice.
It introduced itself. It has no context. No,
we created context for it.
It decided to bring it. I didn't even know how I got it. It was something that I walked by and I bought it with nothing in mind. It was just to support, funnily enough, to support that artist. He had made this. He actually said himself in the little art fair, I don't know why I made this. I says, who's going to want this? Yeah. It's actually made of wood, hand carved, bog oak. It's strange thing is, he said it's about 50 hours. He says, I don't know how many hours it was, quite a few hours I went into polishing it and sculpting it. Yeah. And he said, it makes no sense. But he said, I felt compelled to make it. I make bowls, I make vases, but then I found myself making this hand carved wood mallet. And I made one, and it's the only one. So I was thinking to myself, well, he doesn't make anything else. This is his oddity. This is his unique one. Yeah. Everyone else can buy a bowl, a cup, a mug. I've got his mallet. And he's not going to make one again, and he didn't even know why he made the first one. But that was a little bit of art that just suggested itself for himself. And I found myself in a little church, like, what you would call it, like a market, picking up and buying a mallet. Yeah, and people were looking at me going, well, and even my own wife was saying, well, what are you buying that for? What are you going to do with it? Where are you going to put it? It has no logical, even to hang it on the wall and put it and present it. So it's on my mantelpiece here, but it found its reason to be. It actually is, in my mind, it actually makes sense in the movie GVH, in the sense of, that is my insecurity. If I hear someone at the door and I don't know who it is, I'm grabbing some. No, it's not as if you'd use it, or it's just there's a there's an element of, I'll be shocked seeing this, and they're going to be more shocked that this is the norm of how you turn up. Therefore, it throws people.
Yeah.
And it introduces a level of, I'm not sure. And if they were the gangster in power a second ago, and now you're turning up with this thing in your hand, they're going, maybe they got to question their actions this time around. Is it worth the effort? Because you're not going to go down without a fight.
Yes.
And that's what that's a little bit of art presenting itself into something which the film wasn't written. The scene was not actually written in for it, but it found a way in and to become a crucial piece. Yeah. And even myself in the film, it's back to yourself saying, where in my life journey do I ever think I would have wrote a short?
Yeah.
Being in the short, have a short to write, never mind then going, you got to write the rest of it. And there is no rest of it. But now you can go, you can write, or artist the rest of it can be anything you want, as long as it makes some sort of sense of a thread. And so you've given me great permission to write the rest. And going back to what you were saying earlier on about, I've wrote the 80% that made sense to me under my understanding of not being a writer-artist, to go, because of any time I looked up and questioned myself to be script writer, haven't got the skill set, don't know what I'm doing, I've never wrote before, this is the first one, I'd stop under every heading and go, I'm imposter syndrome and steroids. Yeah. So it's just like you said, just write it for yourself. See if you can. Go through it and go through it again. Don't worry. It's for yourself. But now you're 80 and that 20 is a 20%. I'd be at it forever trying to refine that from version 1 to 50, and I will not come up with the addition that you were going to add to it without I went off into those other learnings.
Yes.
It's not worth those other learnings. The eye needs to be away at that point in order to now shine, embellish, the craft, you're now, I've given you the block of wood. I found a wooden question. I brought it to a shape and structure. You're now fine-tuning and you're shining, you're buffing it. Yeah. And you're going, we know we're going to have this mallet at the end of it now, and we're going to hit a couple of people over the virtual head with it. Because it's in the sense of, it's going to knock them for 6. Because it won't make any sense of where it emanated from, how it got there, who it skipped along the way, who gave you permission in the meantime. You shouldn't be there doing that. We didn't say you could. And the industry is a terrible blocker in that sense, whereby an awful lot of people I'm talking to are going, they're blocked at every course. They're looking for permission and no one's giving them it. They're not even getting to get rejected. Half of England is unemployed, half of America as well. They all have their functions. They're being blocked from being the artist.
Yeah.
The artists they can't bring in most cases, they can't even bring their craft to bear because they're a cog in a wheel that doesn't exist. And therefore they're lost. So we're equally lost going, well, we just got to become the full wheel. We got to add it to a second one and make a cart. And that's where I do believe we will be reflecting a little bit out there to other artists to go, your answer of your skill and craft to be seen and understood probably does lie with others, unfortunately, but not ones you have to ask permission of. It's others that are equally lost that find strength in you, and becoming the we, it will make us both be able to produce work for yourselves, not be lost in the moment and losing time, but actually using your art to get product out there, polish yourselves, make yourselves more visible. Given the social media that exists, you can be making 1 minute micro, 30-second somethings. We do not need to be a cog in the wheel of a 90-minute blockbuster. You have your art every second of every day. You've got your function. You've got your time. You need to be nonstop looking for we's and not bosses.
Yeah, and I think that's what the benefit that we're having is that whereas when I would have been younger writing scripts, even at film school, I would have been classed, oh, that's a bit pretentious, because you hadn't had life experience at 18 or 19 or 20, Whereas we've got a wealth, between us, we've got over 100 years experience. We're able to package in, but we don't have to put the whole, it's just that we know what works, what doesn't work. We've watched enough television and movies and seen the structures. We've got used to storytelling processes because we tell stories all the time. And what's really, really good is that we're able to tell and inform other people what it is that we're actually now doing. And it's become a really refined process. And I'm going off to Wakes and telling people Wakes what we're doing, because to them it's a distraction, so they can get away from the loss they've just had. But it's also interesting because people are curious and they want to know, and they're kind of going, wow, why has nobody else ever done that before? And, you would have thought somebody would have done this before.
Actually, what you're saying there, that's happened, this week as well. Actually, every other week, come to think of it.
Yeah.
And even my wife was going, people were asking, what's he doing? And she doesn't know how to answer, because we barely know how to answer, in a sense of, what is it? Yeah, we're not what the current, if I said film producer, they go, what film? Yeah, it becomes a different question leading a different way. So it's not a film producer, because we're not saying it's some films out there that he understand. It's a film producer, and the film in question is our own film. Yeah. And that then becomes, forget the film producer aspect. We're currently working on our feature.
Yeah.
Therefore we don't need to explain to anyone else what we did before or going to do again or who we're working for. We are so busy. I've just got 2 years work on my side, based on what I'm thinking.
I got just the same as well.
In terms of what we want to do ourselves. Yeah. Not that we're overwhelmed by it, but going, no. I want to be doing this production scheduling side. I want to be doing shot. I want to get the casting. I want to sort this out, readings. Yeah. I want to be involved in all of that. And actually, I want to be doing these 52 boards, because they're very important, because they're part of sales and marketing and business development.
Yeah.
They are part of PR, publicity, and communication. They are a tool to basically refine, when someone asks that question later on, that here's a ticket to ride. You don't need to. And what's that mean? Well, this is it's a day and a week of what? Of this. So then it brings them down the right funnel, that they don't try and compare it to a lack of understanding of some other reality that was my problem before. Keep on trying to fit into someone else's idea of what things are and their understanding of the world and how it works versus our world. We're now operating in our microcosm world, and this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. This is how we'll open the doors so you can interact with it. But it's not to keep on getting into conversation and explaining yourself to other people so that they can understand why you're doing what you're doing. Why aren't you working in a normal scheme of things? You could be off being an accountant, earning 200,000. You could pay for that. You go,
yeah, maybe that's
that is not the way that I want to do it.
Yeah, maybe that's because of your experience as being an accountant and the perceptions that they have. Whereas my areas, I've always been a filmmaker. But what I'm actually doing is saying to folks, it's actually not a film. It's not about the film. It's about the experience of being.
No, we are experience makers.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. We're creating events using a film format.
And we just touched on it earlier on. We're now embarking in film tourism. It's actually film production retreats. It's retreats for like-minded community and people that go on. It's accessible for those that have never had access for a price. Yeah.
You think you've seen Game of Thrones. I've seen Game of Thrones. I go to Banbridge now, and there's a Game of Thrones tour. The TV series has probably been finished maybe in the last 7 or 8 years. They've now got a new one coming out, but they're doing people who are coming to Ireland want to go on these tours, these Game of Thrones tours. But again, they're only...
That's after the fact.
It's after the fact.
And it's not real.
It's not.
Again, so the strange thing is, you just touched on a nugget right there. Now you're going, this is a tour on the inside looking out during the making of.
Yes, it's actually,
after the fact, looking what happened in the past. And here's a couple of plastic dummies.
Yes.
You're going,
yeah. And I think that's important, because basically what we're saying is, look, if you've always wanted to know how a film gets made, we can show you as a holiday experience. And in that 1 week, you rotate through 8 different roles. You're still on set, the same set for the next scene. You're just in a different role, but you're getting to experience what it's like in one of those roles to command all of the other people into following a certain set of tasks.
Well, what I like, though, George, is, again, it's like we're doing if someone ever listens to this, are you selling your project and product? are you selling yourself on the idea? We're selling ourselves on the fact that what this podcast and these podcasts really are is it's coaching ourselves, it's mentoring ourselves, it's understanding where we are, it's refining, it's strategizing, it's ideation. These podcasts most of the time are ideation and continuously reassuring yourselves that it's okay to be alive. It's okay to be doing what you're doing. This is your world. This is our moment in time. We're capturing for others to go, whatever your art is or your equivalent is, time. I keep on coming back to, I was down the road, I was having my coffee talking to an artist friend who was asking these questions. And he was going, nope, can't wait to see it. Can't wait to help you. Can't wait to coach you into that process you're talking about. I don't even know what process you're talking about, but if I can help and I can mentor you and to let you get where you're going and help you get there, what starts to have is that give and take conversation. People want to be involved in real meaningful journeys and things as opposed to time consumption things that there's nothing on the outside of it. It just consumes and burns time. Yeah. This is creation time. This is community time. This is, I spent my time with this individual, those individuals doing these things, and look at the evidence. And therefore, people are getting excited and starting to ask questions. They're talking about something they don't know about. They don't even know what it is they're talking about because we haven't told them. And the strange thing is they just know something's going on and they're not part of it. And they're wondering why. Because they need to be informed so they understand. People need to understand what they're missing out on. And are they missing out? It's not for me. I don't want to go to that anyway. There's a food fair on next week. I don't want to go. It's not my thing. My wife will probably go to. She'll enjoy it. Now, if this thing was on, I might go to this one, or I might go to the fair. But there's something for everyone in the audience, but it's not the same thing for everyone in the audience. There is an audience for everything. And therefore, we don't need to be explaining ourselves to the wrong audience.
Yeah. Well, I think, as with each Even Little Films coming up with a kind of pitch line, which is about 24 words long, if we get to that point where, I'm not sure we have at the moment, but where I know that the people I'm talking about, because I'm so enthusiastic about what we're doing, that straight away they're buying into the idea. And we are meeting people who have the potential money to pay for this. I mean, like even in the last week, my wife's been looking and saying, let's go to Japan. It's about $6-7 grand per person to go over. And we're kind of going, can we really afford that? But, it's the fact that she's looking that up and looking that price and kind of going, what, maybe it's a dream holiday to go to Japan. But other people, their dream holiday might be to be part of a movie.
In Ireland.
In Ireland, and get a double whammy in Ireland, especially the other experiences that they'll get, which is part of the package. And the one thing is that even that package that we were talking about going to Japan, you were led through the journey of the 8 days, and what I've been doing with the photo walk is designing a little walk for people, and people want you to take control and lead them on a journey.
Now, the great thing, George, is just what you put into my mind there is we're going to lead them on a journey of somewhere that doesn't exist. So, I mean, the Game of Thrones one was interesting in a sense that they're looking at evidence of something that exists after the fact, and there was a movie, and this is a reference back to maybe a location or some scene. But we're actually doing it in advance. We're going, here's the ticket to ride on the scene that's in the feature that you're now part of, and your blood, sweat, and tears and time will be evidence in that output.
Well, one of the things that's really lovely is that because we've got the trailer for GVH, we can actually show that as a trailer for the bigger movie. So we do have evidence that we can say, look, these are...
Now, strangely enough, though, this really comes back to the one thing you touched on. Are those actors that are in that trailer the same people?
Not necessarily. But I think...
But again, if you show the trailer, the ones in it would nearly happen.
But what you're actually doing with the 2 trailers, because I think we show the 2 trailers, and one of the things that I was talking about was that we need to get together and interview everybody and create stories of how what went on. So instead of a podcast that we're doing now, actually me setting up one of my cameras and interviewing you for a 10-minute piece, just 10 minutes. I know that's going to be awful for you.
That's just the opening gambit.
That's the opening gambit, yeah. But actually talking to you about certain aspects of the film, I normally come up with 5 questions. So we'll ask the 5 questions to each of the people that are involved about how it's basically, where did it start? How did it go? What was the production?
And where are you now?
Where are you now? I mean, and keep it that it doesn't need to be any more complicated. And then you get 5 people talking about those 5 elements. You can intercut them. Yeah. And then before you know it, you've got a half-hour documentary. That documentary we can then start putting into film festivals about the process of what we're doing.
The great thing it's back to going, who's this podcast for? Why would anyone be listening to this? And what really comes back to what I was saying.
Yeah,
this is a very personal thing to us. Actually, I mentioned to someone earlier on. I was going, another one of our team. I was going, myself and George are going to have a chat. We're going to press record. We're going to put it out there. It's for the algorithms. But at the same time, this is how we go on nearly. Camera off. Normally, we have these conversations. We get the ideation. We have a banter back and forth. We argue the fact. We find common ground. We agree that we're saying this for 5 years nonstop, and it's fine tuning. We've gone through lots of learnings, but now we're saying we have our language. Now we're doing this. It's a year's work. It's half a year's work, but we're doing that script. We're not letting it go. We're shining it up and we're fine tuning it. Yes. When that's finished, it goes on the next stage of the project. We know then it's another X amount of work. It's a layering effect. And it's not that it's ending. Each end has a start and it has a little go back to start, do again and fix. But it's now very, very focused. We're making a feature film. It's this one, it's this long, it's in these locations with these people, those cast, that crew. It's happening then for those customers. It's not some other one. We can do that again. We have other ideas, but we don't need to move on to the next one in a future timeline and consume this one with it, because this one is we're going to spend the next year and there's going to be so many jobs and pieces of work. That's the mundane, but that's just the physical consumption of time. But I know all of those activities of time consumption are actually investing layers of art manifestation, making real, of film, of script, of actor, of networking, all those people. I can't actually wait to get these 20 people that are going to be in this film. There could be 100 conversations going to be had. So that's the real thing. The real thing is the tool to network, the tool to talk, the tool to communicate, the tool to create opportunity to see who's going to be involved.
Well, one of the great things about what we're doing, and it's what people that become well known, not saying famous, but become well known. What happens is that it's the evidence that they've accumulated, which they never had any. Like Anne Franks wrote a diary. She loved writing a diary. She didn't know that she was going to end up in a concentration camp and be gassed. But one of her surviving members of her family managed to keep her diaries, and all of a sudden, here we are 70 years later, her diaries are well known, because it's the story of Anne Franks. I'm listening to the Beatles, and on some of the second CDs, you actually hear the Beatles talking about the songs they're about to record and the problems they're actually having. We're going through a similar sort of process. We're doing it for ourselves primarily, but I can virtually guarantee 10 years' time, when we've made our films and somebody sort of realizes what we've been doing, there'll be some PhD student in some university across the world foraging through all the material that we've made to help back up their theories of a question that they've asked in media production for media studies course, like my supervisor did for their PhD on Walt Disney. And they knew every single cup of tea type that he had, but they didn't know anything about animation. That doesn't matter. There was a resource there that they were able to sift through to come up with their arguments and build up a story about what their interpretation of what we've done. We're giving them that evidence. It's primary evidence, because they'll be able to hear us talking.
As long as the electricity doesn't go out, because it's all digital evidence.
It's all digital. But you see, this is where these little babies come up.
And that's where those big frames, if we don't burn them or paint over them.
That's why and
that's the strange thing. Until this film exists, and when it will, there's no most people I'm talking to don't. I'm trying to make things more real so they can understand and I can understand in a more material sense that things are happening, things are moving, so they can see and consume a little bit more earlier of the journey made real. Because what we're talking about is making the digital real. We're saying it's a real experience. We're not selling an online course. We're selling, we're not even selling a course. We're selling an experience. And you can't experience it online. You got to come and do it. Yeah. And you got to be in the room, and you got to be part of the community. And we don't know that 8 people or 12 or 20 people when you add everyone else into the mix. It's that electric, energy. It's the energy in the room is the uniqueness of all that will actually be the output product. Regardless how well the film does or doesn't do, it doesn't matter. It's the medium. It's actually, it's who's in the room. How are they chat? I mean, a friend, Dexter, when the last one, we were laughing our heads off till 4 a.m. after not seeing each other for 10, 15 years. And it was just the day before of the actions was very, very tough. And, you could see there was other things going on behind the eyes of memories or frustrations or real world situations going on in the background. But then when they're all released and we relaxed and we had a drink or two and we just were in the half tired space of then moving outside that day and back into memory and experiences, you just couldn't, there was nothing in that 3 hours you just couldn't pay for it. You couldn't have bought it. You couldn't have packaged it. It doesn't exist. It had to be there in terms of that networked energy moment of other people that have found a common team and safe space to relax enough to give to the center, to just be real in the moment and laugh and cry and let go of the pretense.
And I think that's going to be more valuable than what people are actually paying for to come on the week experience, because those conversations, those opening up, those seeing what other people are doing from different parts of the world potentially, and the evening chats which we begin to realize what life's really all about. And the fact it becomes a retreat because it takes you out of the bubble of your normal life into a fantasy bubble for most people, because it's unreal to be working on a film set. But most people want to know what it's like to work on a film set. And we're creating that environment for them to see real actors performing in front of a camera, setting up a camera, maybe smaller than what most of them think, but that's the way technology's gone, lighting things, looking at the production design and having an opportunity to see, is there something in frame that shouldn't be in frame, like a microphone, or just something that's just out of place and that would spoil that shot. And people can sort of contribute to that and help mold this movie into something that's quite interesting. And that experience, I think, is well worth paying for. Because, I mean, I know I paid for like a day-long type course to go to Rain Dance in London and to be able to be with a group of people shooting on a 35mm camera. Now, we were told it was going to be processed and we'd get to see the results of it. We never did because it cost too much money. But we had the experience of being in the room with a massive, great big Panasonic camera, I think it was, 35mm, it might be an Arriflex, no idea. Just working with people and running a roll of film through a camera and seeing how things go. This experience that we're giving is going to be far more in depth than that was, because that was people making things up on the spur of the moment. This is something that will have taken nearly a year to prepare for the 8 weeks potentially that we will be doing this shoot. And that shoot will be slowed down so that each week we can create 15 minutes, which will create the 90 minutes. Is that right? No, we're doing 15 minutes. No, that could be
120. Again, 120. It's more the fact 4 days. But people don't really need to know. But what it really is we're happy if we can sell a week, we can sell 2. We can sell 2, we can sell 8. It's not whatever it needs to be to get the minimum that we're not maximizing in a day, that people feel under pressure in terms of the job.
If somebody wants to come for 3 weeks, they won't get the same experience repeated the following week. It's not a repeat.
There is no one. The brilliant thing is there's no 1 minute alike.
It's going to
and
be,
never will be.
yeah,
And there's no product. There's a framework,
yes,
and the product doesn't actually exist till it's actually
edited.
done there and then in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the air moving the light and the trees, the actor doing the lines, the car that went by in the back. It's art being captured in real time.
Yeah.
Within a framework, a process. So I'm actually looking forward to the next time we experience it. The next, actually, if and when the next time is scene one, location one of our feature, that is just a mad, to me, milestone of my life. It'll be in the sense of there's not, again, I still went back in time. I still couldn't come up with this. There's no way I'd be coming up with those goals and putting it there and saying, that's going to happen. I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah.
It's only becoming more, with yourself and guidance. And the more we talk about it, the more we can make it real. And again, even though I know the accountant to me it says that's going to cost a fortune, look at all these problems are there. And I'm ignoring them all because they'll all be taken care of.
Yeah.
We can take care of every issue and problem. Then we don't need to be harboring on about them. We know for any artist or anyone out there, if you turn up and you give them your time and you give your focus a bit and make a good effort, you can make stuff real. If you communicate and you network with others, you can make new friends. But if you leave the avatar at home and bring yourself, your real you can be yourself and be in this safe environment. And that's really what I think it is.
Yeah, the purpose of the paintings that you're doing, that if you didn't create 52 frames, there wouldn't be anything to paint on. And that's an important part of the process. There's a freedom that's now available to whoever comes and paints the images on them, purely because those frames now exist that didn't do before. And I think that's always, and then you've got the white frame is what most people get frightened of. But we're saying no, but we're writing a story to go on that frame. It's already worked out. It's already there in the.
We just want to best present what goes on that.
Yeah,
the collage of it goes with the flow. So it'd be difficult. It's not. Well, once we get her rhythm, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But so we know that 2 scenes, if you divide had 100 scenes, have to be whatever you remember both out of that stood out is a couple of images of something goes on there. So if you read the script, if you saw the film, you could relate. If you saw when the journey, you could ask the right questions, you can start to see patterns. Yeah. But I mean, anything in isolation can be a standalone something, but at the same time, it's out of context.
But I think what's interesting, having trained and nearly finished to be a qualified counsellor, is that quite often I can prepare for what's going to happen, what I'm going to do in the session. And then as soon as the client comes in, I literally throw everything out the window. We're not going to be doing that. But one of the things that happens, especially with a CPD, when you're giving some kind of direction, we're creating the direction that people are going to go on if they want to come with us. But in counseling, there's also art therapy and there's music therapy. There's probably food therapy. And all we're creating is film therapy, because we're taking somebody
I like that.
on a journey through the making of a film that allows them to shut out the world that's cramming in on them.
Oh, there you go. In this scene, or on this episode, if all we took now the language of, we didn't know what we were going to talk about to begin with, we sort of found out, we know what our favorite things to talk about are, so we went into that conversation because that's where we're.
But this is a therapy session.
Moment. But now you've arrived at this. So we're saying, if we were to define ourselves, what our product is, our product is film therapy.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we keep on coming back in the 5 years going, this is a coaching, mentoring, safe space of mental health, that you leave your avatar at the door and you can be safe in this nurturing environment. And the language in the environment is just these case studies of. Yeah. It's just a team building language that you're mentored and coached through. It's not having to perform. It's not a holding that you're accountable to under a job or a training, or that's what, if you remove those aspects of counting credits and have to perform and we take care of that, then you're actually in a therapeutic retreat environment.
Yes. And I think that's
film therapy.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important, because it also comes back to giving people the permission to be creative the way that they would like.
Yeah.
with, and even if you've got a canvas, which is what you've produced, 52 of them, you're still restricted in ways of putting things on that canvas.
Yeah.
But you can be innovative in the way you do that within the framework that we're creating on a minute by minute process over 4 2-hour sessions during the day. We're giving people a framework to work within, so they're being guided through that process. They don't have to have any experience beforehand. We'll be guiding them through that process. And by the end of the week, they'll have enough experience that if they wanted to go off and do it themselves, they can do. So it's a great training process. But there's all the other materials that will help them to understand what went in before, because we'll share some of that beforehand to give them an insight of what's going on a week by week basis. So each group will only get a week's worth of material to understand.
And that's the great thing. You're not going to be overwhelmed by the big picture.
Yeah.
Literally. They don't need to. They don't need to know any more than turn up, be here. You got to be in the room. And if you just turn up in the room, the rest we can take care of.
And be open to participate and be directed. I think and let go. Just let go.
Exactly.
No, I
think it's a safe environment.
At that particular point in time, we're going to have to let go because I'm going to go and pick my mum up. She's got an appointment and I'm meant to go and pick her up. But that's okay because that's part of that process. What I've liked about what we've been discussing in this session is that we weren't prepared when we were coming in what we were going to talk about, which is very much like a counseling session or a mentoring session in one way. It was what we were going to bring in the room to discuss. And that 5 years of experience of working things through and whittling it down to, carving it down, let's say, to what we have, fine-tuning it, which we're doing now with the script, has allowed us to go from 2 short films and the processes we went through that. It allowed you to write a script, then a feature film script. It allowed me to not only direct films that I love doing part of, but also composing music. And I even got the chance to compose my first song, which becomes the end theme for GVH. We've seen those films winning awards. We're now confident enough in what we're doing to explain the process to other people. That's enthusing them. And we're now seeing that other people on the peripherals are very interested in what we're doing and want to either share with us that process or want to be part of it. But
most what I'm coming across is they want to be customers.
They want to be customers, yes. And I think that's, and we're not being forced. It's not being forced on them. They're willingly wanting to be part of this process, which I think is absolutely fabulous. So, yeah, no, every time we do this, it makes sense more and more where we're going, and the opportunity to talk these things through in these podcasts provides evidence for us that what we're doing and how we're going forward. It also means that we keep on track. It also becomes evidence in a historical perspective that somebody else could use this material to develop their PhD at some point when they want to talk about how Garvin wrote a script and became a producer.
Now, the strange thing is I'm reminded of a bunch of our podcasts, over 150 or so, or 140, whatever are out there. I know we had this conversation or elements of it similarly so each time. And it came up, one must keep going and that type of thing. But what it was is, if you took that one and this one and maybe 3 of them in there, each time it was not less enthused. It was more enthused. Yeah. The passage of time, even though we hadn't, what others would see is you haven't done it yet or achieved it yet, you've not got paying customers. We're going, no, I've never been looking forward to it more of 5 years of talking about it. No, I know we've done a lot. I keep on saying that we've done 140 podcasts. We've done 2 shorts. We've wrote a feature. We've done other, and we know what the product is, and we now found our language. But that all aside, I'm very, very excited to keep on going. I actually can't wait to be drowning in the amount of work that's involved in it, because it's all the sort of work I want to be doing, because it's my or our work. Yeah. It's not someone else's work that they're giving to me to do. It's work that needs doing, that I want done, so we can get our art out there. It's not It's the passion work.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important, because one of the things that we were very frustrated with, and you'd use the term functional, that we're just, we're functional, is because we've become slave to somebody else's system. And it's not that we are kind of rebelling, because we've learned how to do things, but we're now at that point in life where we've paid for the mortgages, we've paid for the big debts, we still have little debts, as in just the usual running costs that we have to get going through. So we still need those kind of costs. But we're now, I mean, even in that last little bit, you're talking about the work that you're looking forward to doing, and you don't see it as a burden. You're excited about doing it because it hasn't been forced on you, and you've not been overworked to do it. You can do it at your own pace. You can do it in a way that doesn't kill you, which is what is very important about this whole process. But I am going to have to finish here. But what I want to do before we finish is, Garvin, can you read us what was on that card that started off the show one more time, just to wrap up?
Yep. All things are difficult before they are easy.
There you go. All things are difficult until they're easy. This is the easy part, to say goodbye. Bye for now, folks.
Bye for now. See you then. Take care.